September 1938. Hitler demanded the Sudetenland, a slice of Czechoslovakia. War loomed. Britain's Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain flew to Munich, desperate to avoid another bloodbath. The deal was struck. Hitler gets the Sudetenland. In return, he promises no more demands. Chamberlain returned to London waving his paper, declaring peace for our time. Crowds cheered. But in Berlin, Hitler laughed. Appeasement wasn't peace, it was permission. In 1919, Adolf Hitler was a nobody, a failed painter, a bitter ex-soldier wandering the wreckage of a defeated Germany. Then he joined the German Workers' Party, a fringe group meeting in Munich beer halls. He found his calling, not with a brush, but with words. Hitler spoke like a man possessed. His voice turned anger into hope, humiliation into a vision. He railed against the Treaty of Versailles, the November criminals, the communists, the Jews, anyone he could blame for Germany's fall. Crowds grew, so did the party. It became the National Socialist German Workers' Party, the Nazis. In 1923, drunk on ambition, Hitler tried to seize power in the beer hall putsch. It failed. He landed in prison, but in his cell, he wrote Mein Kampf, his manifesto of hatred and conquest. Few read it then. They would pay later. When he walked free, Hitler vowed never again would he fail. Next time, he would take Germany legally and destroy the world order from within. By the mid-1930s, Europe trembled as dictators flexed their muscles. Mussolini invaded Ethiopia in 1935, laughing at the League of Nations. Sanctions? Toothless. The world muttered but did nothing. Hitler took notes. If Mussolini could defy Versailles, so could he. The two men, both lovers of power, parades and empire, grew close. They called it the Rome-Berlin Axis. Later, Japan would join, forming the Axis powers. These men didn't just want respect, they wanted conquest. They preached that peace was weakness, that destiny belonged to nations willing to kill for it. And the democracies? Britain and France clung to hope, believing treaties and talks could tame the wolves. They were wrong. Italy emerged from World War I on the winning side, but it didn't feel like victory. Promised lands never came, factories were idle, and soldiers returned to poverty. Amid this bitterness, a man named Benito Mussolini seized the stage. With black-shirted thugs and fiery speeches, he promised a new Rome, an empire reborn. In 1922, Mussolini marched on Rome, not with an army, but with fear. The king gave him power without a fight. Fascism was born. It glorified strength, obedience, and nationalism. Democracy was weakness, Mussolini said. The future belonged to the strong. Italy's example was contagious. Other nations watched as Mussolini crushed dissent and revived pride. Among those watching was a failed artist in Germany who saw in Mussolini a blueprint for his own dream, a Reich that would last 1,000 years. Europe didn't know it yet, but fascism was afire, and it was spreading. The guns fell silent on November 11, 1918, but peace never truly came. Europe was scarred, not just in body, but in soul. Trenches lay like open wounds across the land, and nations bled treasure and pride. They called it the war to end all wars, but in truth, it was just the opening act. Germany was crushed under the weight of defeat. Soldiers returned home to a land in chaos, greeted not as heroes, but as scapegoats. The Treaty of Versailles was supposed to guarantee peace. Instead, it planted seeds of fury. Heavy reparations, territorial losses, and a humiliating war guilt clause left Germany humiliated and hungry for revenge. Meanwhile, the world stumbled into the 1920s like a drunk after a brawl, desperate for normalcy, but haunted by what had happened. Behind the jazz, the champagne, and the flapper dresses, an unspoken question lingered. Had the war truly ended, or was it just paused? The answer would come, not with trumpets, but with the boots of marching men. By 1930, Germany was broken, 6 million unemployed. Bread lines stretched through cities, and in the Reichstag, the Nazis surged. They offered a simple answer to a complicated crisis. Germany will rise again. In 1932, Hitler ran for president. He lost, but he proved he was no fringe figure. The Nazis became the largest party in parliament. The old elites thought they could control him. They were wrong. On January 30th, 1933, Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor. Legally, respectably. Within months, democracy was dead. The Reichstag burned. Civil liberties vanished. Opponents disappeared into camps. The Nazis banned all other parties. Hitler promised jobs, pride, and power, and the people cheered. They hailed him as a savior. The world watched and shrugged. Another strong man in a fragile land, they thought. But this was no ordinary tyrant. This was a man who had written his plans in ink and now had the power to make them real. Europe after 1918 was not a land of victors, just survivors. Cities lay in rubble, fields were graveyards, and families mourned sons who would never return. Nations that had bled for 4 years now faced hunger, inflation, and crippling debt. In Germany, desperation turned to chaos. Soldiers came home to revolution in the streets. Communists battled nationalists. Assassinations became routine. Governments rose and fell like autumn leaves in a storm. Ordinary people asked, what was the war for? Meanwhile, across the Channel, Britain counted its dead and clung to its empire like a drowning man to driftwood. France, scarred by the trenches, vowed never to let Germany rise again. America, rich and aloof, turned its back on Europe's troubles. But something darker was brewing in the shadows, an anger that found its voice in extremists. Men who promised strength, unity, and vengeance. Men who whispered that democracy was weak, and only iron could rule the world. March 1938. German troops rolled into Austria, not with bullets but with flowers. Crowds cheered as Hitler proclaimed the Anschluss. Austria and Germany united as one Reich. It was a blatant violation of Versailles. But Britain and France, they protested and did nothing. Many even thought it reasonable. Austria was German-speaking after all. Hitler claimed he wanted peace. They believed him, but Hitler wanted more, much more. The 1920s roared with jazz, champagne, and skyscrapers. People wanted to forget the trenches, the mud, the dead. Europe rebuilt, America boomed, and optimism glittered like gold. But beneath the glitter lay cracks. Germany borrowed to pay reparations. France relied on German gold to rebuild. The world economy was a house of cards. And then, in 1929, Wall Street crashed. The Great Depression hit like a hammer. Banks collapsed, factories closed, and millions lost their jobs. Desperation returned. In Germany, hunger stalked the streets. Democracy seemed powerless. People stopped asking who is right and started asking who is strong. Extremists thrived in chaos. Communists promised revolution. Nazis promised revenge. And in the beer halls, Hitler's voice rose again, not as a joke, but as destiny. The volcano was rumbling. The world danced on its edge, pretending it would never erupt again. Once in power, Hitler wasted no time tightening his grip. The Reichstag fire in 1933 became his excuse to crush opposition. Under the Enabling Act, Hitler could rule by decree. Democracy signed its own death warrant. The Nazis banned all other parties. Trade unions dissolved. Judges, teachers, soldiers, everyone swore loyalty to Hitler. Propaganda flooded the nation. The swastika flew on every building. Children marched in Hitler youth uniforms, chanting songs of destiny. Germany rearmed in secret, violating Versailles. Factories hummed, unemployment fell, and hope returned for those who obeyed. For Jews, communists, and dissenters, it was terror. Dachau opened as the first concentration camp. The world barely noticed. To many Germans, Hitler delivered what they craved: pride, order, and bread. Few asked what price they would pay. By 1930, Germany was broken. 6 million unemployed. Bread lines stretched through cities. And in the Reichstag, the Nazis surged. They offered a simple answer to a complicated crisis: Germany will rise again. In 1932, Hitler ran for president. He lost, but he proved he was no fringe figure. The Nazis became the largest party in parliament. The old elites thought they could control him. They were wrong. On January 30th, 1933, Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor. Legally, respectably. Within months, democracy was dead. The Reichstag burned. Civil liberties vanished. Opponents disappeared into camps. The Nazis banned all other parties. Hitler promised jobs, pride, and power, and the people cheered. They hailed him as a savior. The world watched and shrugged. Another strong man in a fragile land, they thought. But this was no ordinary tyrant. This was a man who had written his plans in ink and now had the power to make them real. The 1920s roared with jazz, champagne, and skyscrapers. People wanted to forget the trenches, the mud, the dead. Europe rebuilt, America boomed, and optimism glittered like gold. But beneath the glitter lay cracks. Germany borrowed to pay reparations. France relied on German gold to rebuild. The world economy was a house of cards. And then, in 1929, Wall Street crashed. The Great Depression hit like a hammer. Banks collapsed, factories closed, and millions lost their jobs. Desperation returned. In Germany, hunger stalked the streets. Democracy seemed powerless. People stopped asking who is right and started asking who is strong. Extremists thrived in chaos. Communists promised revolution. Nazis promised revenge. And in the beer halls, Hitler's voice rose again, not as a joke, but as destiny. The volcano was rumbling. The world danced on its edge, pretending it would never erupt again.